All right. Yeah.
So go part two. And this is the one, the most interesting part,
Yeah.
because, you know, I really don't, I feel like, it's kind of against the people who claim they're supporting me.
Okay.
But I kind of don't feel that they're supporting me. You know, I feel like it's more of keeping up an appearance because of proximity, because um, if they really was supporting me, this medicine would have never made its way into my body.
Mm-hmm.
There was so many things they could have done and said to me or said to my family that could have prevented this from happening to me. And then, like, the issues I'm having with, like with my thyroid, with how they treated me when I got COVID, how they treated me with my diabetes, my livers, my kidneys. They are actually committing malpractice with a lot of the things they're doing right here in Williamsburg. And I feel like, Williamsburg, they didn't get me in this situation. You know, people from my community, pillars of my community did. But I feel like there's a network, and I feel like the network from my community or my hometown extends to Williamsburg and just Virginia in general. And if the
So you
people,
think they're like communicating
yeah,
from your community to
not
Lancaster
necessarily
to
communicate.
Williamsburg, or
I kind of think it's like one big network, and not necessarily communicating in the sense of like, you know, well, yeah, I guess it is communicating, but that's not the word I would use because it ain't like they know each other on a first name basis. I feel like it's kind of like basically I'm being blackballed, and because who this medicine and is associated with and what it represents, people try to distance themselves from me, even like people in Williamsburg. So like that's why I would use communicating. I feel like Williamsburg distanced themselves from me and won't help me, but they, out of respect for the people in my community, the pillars of my community, they should put in a little more effort to want to help me because of how I didn't play a role into getting in this situation. And it's just out of respect. If they respected the pillars of my community, they would do more for me. And basically the respect that they have for my community, and I know this contradicts itself, is why everybody in Williamsburg do what they do. It's like a long extension, that there's an understanding of how to handle this situation. And, I don't like how it's being handled because they use derogatory words towards me. Like, I deal with a lot of depression.
mm-hmm.
So instead of them saying, he didn't shower because he's depressed, it's, oh, he's nasty, he's dirty,
Who's saying that?
when I look at their outlets that they use, whether it's TV and things like that, just like when I was living with my mother, when I was in family back home, when I was first put on this medicine in 2006, um, I would look at like BET 106 in Park, and they would have guests come on there, and they made a video talking about, because like when I was first put on this medicine, I was really bad off, and I would go
Yeah, I
three,
remember you saying
yeah,
you just
I would go 3-4 days without showering, 3-4 days without brushing my teeth because I was so
press,
depressed.
sure.
I was sitting on my couch in the fetal position crying all the time, because of, being on this medicine. And then it's, and instead of them saying, he's depressed, let's get him a therapist, they was like making music videos, taunting me, talking about brush your teeth, take a shower.
So these
And
were messages you were getting from the
yeah,
TV.
and they was airing it on 106 in Park, and they got an audience there, and everybody sitting there, and it's just blatant disrespect, to use it's semantics. It's better ways to handle things, and like I was talking last week, like how it's different approaches for different cultures and communities. I feel like whites wouldn't treat other whites like that. I feel like blacks, and this is not a bad thing towards blacks. I feel like blacks, like, you know, remember when I was talking about the politically correct and things of that nature? Like, we're forward and honest, but like I was saying, you need a balance of both, and, you know, and we need leaders that lead by example, leaders that represents us correctly, and we only do what we see as a community. And I feel like black people are not how described. I don't think anyone is how described or stereotyped. Whether you white, black. I feel like if you born white and you like 6 months old, you born black, you 6 months old. Depending on your depending on your demographic, who you raised by, your financial status, you can be either or of the stereotype. Whether it's someone white that grew up in a trailer park, they could be ignorant. You could be black and live in, the Hamptons. You're gonna
Sure.
be politically correct. So those are a lot of factors to why and how people become the way they are. And I feel like we got leaders that graduated from Ivy League schools, and they will get on white outlets and speak down upon their own community, and like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, I call them the black enablers because, they oppress black people and benefit financially from it, and, you know, it's just one of those things. And I don't feel like they want to be that way. I feel like that's the only way they can be because of the elite whites. I feel like elite whites kind of only allow them to behave that way. If they go there if they say something on TV that's going to educate blacks or empower blacks, then the broadcast is going to get cut short, and so they got this theme of, we got to go on TV and this is saying you hear in our community a lot of times, you got to play the game, and to a degree you do, but playing the game doesn't change the game. It can be a clog in the wheel at times, and that's something where you gotta have a balance too. Everything's about balance. If white elites always know you're gonna sell out your people to get ahead, or you're gonna play the game, then they could structure the design around those instances of how you gonna react to whatever happened. And that's pretty much what's going on to a degree, but to get on what I was gonna talk about, like, I feel like I'm gonna get there in a second. I feel like you know it's a situation where if, like, how they storm the Capitol, because they feel like their freedom is in jeopardy on that Trump rhetoric stuff. You know, blacks did that with the civil rights movement. We didn't get the same reception. If we would have stormed the Capitol, we probably would have got shot, pepper sprayed, gassed, you name it. So that's a lot of reasons why we tend to not get involved in certain things. You got the Black Lives Matter movement, but I feel like, you know, and finances make a difference too, like, like how you see volunteer fire department, that's mainly white people. Like, white people in a position where they can volunteer at times. And it's nothing, and this is not a racist thing, but black people as a race, we don't have that financial freedom or that um, capital
Mm-hmm.
to really dedicate our time to things like education of our children or volunteering for the fire department. A lot of things in our community are money based and money dependent to where we just trying to feed our families.
Sure.
And that's that. But like, me being on this medicine, you know, it's kind of, I don't think, and this is not pulling a race card, but you could, the same circumstances I'm in, you couldn't put a white person in because it will require a different structure because it's a different system, it's a different culture. But with that being said, how is a situation like this is kind of culture driven, and what I mean by that is how you how they kind of get people to behave, and the protocols that are in place. It's like, um, you know, for one, I think this is U.S. medicine. I don't think it's terrorist medicine because, for one, I'm not a good bargaining chip for the terrorists to use. Two, you know, and this is one thing I can say about black people, and I've been thinking about this for a minute. If everybody thought like black people, the world we probably have world peace because, you know, black people are very welcoming. We'll welcome anyone in our community. We will spend money at in any
Mm-hmm.
community. Whereas Asians don't do that. Indians don't do that from India. Whites don't do that. They put their community first. So, with that being said, if everybody thought like black people, we would probably be united. But for the simple fact that we're the only ones that think that way, makes it a problem within our community. Because like how I was saying last week with Jay-Z and the Black Album, you look at the Black Album, do you know what he mean by the Black Album? He don't mean like ethnicity or color of skin. When he say the Black Album, he's referring to the Mob Album.
Okay.
Because you associate mobsters with suits and black and
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature. And to like further the speculation of that, he says in a song, Dirt on Your Shoulders, he said, ain't gotta clap at them because they scared of that black, which translates to I ain't gotta shoot at them, they scared of the mafia. Meaning,
You were saying that last week.
so, you know, and that's the thing, like, you look at everybody runs our community except us. And in a situation like this, that's what you want from someone. That's like our government want a situation where like it's you think it's a coincidence that everybody, and this is before the medicine, everybody runs our community except us. And now I'm in this situation and my community is being impacted the most. And we got really no say so in the matter. Everybody runs our community, and where's the NAACP? Where's Al Sharpton? Where's Jesse Jackson? They nowhere to be found because they know when, the government put their feet down, they know to get in line, you know, because it's dangerous to not to, and same thing with mobsters. Most mobsters, I mean, most black people are scared of mobsters. When and this, I'm not talking about everyday black people. You know, I'm talking about people that are in the streets committing crimes that are black.
Mm-hmm.
They not gonna go against the mob. And the reality is, my opinion is, I don't encourage or wish anything like this, but I feel like if there was like to have a breakout, like a war between black gangs and Italian gangs, blacks will win because we outnumber them. Italians probably have police on their side, but we outnumber them. And mobsters know that. So mobsters think like this, as far as blacks, it's better to come at them with honey than vinegar. So what mobsters do,
Kind of keep the peace.
keep the peace. Yeah. So what mobsters do with the black community, they find someone that the black community cherish and respect and look up to, and use them as an ambassador to control the whole black community.
Okay.
And that's what Jay-Z is.
Okay.
Jay-Z is someone that a lot of black people look up to. He's like an ambassador to the mobsters. He's an ambassador to the government, and all the rappers that are ambassadors to the government, they ambassadors to the secret societies, and that's what I'm getting at when I say that everybody control our community except us, and that's a problem. Like like the police in my town, when things first started going down, you know, um, I was getting harassed by local police, and I wasn't doing nothing illegal. By then, when this situation started before medicine, I said like a month or so before I was actually on it, I had stopped selling pot like a year and a half, going on 2 years. I sold pot from when I was about, I would say 17 and a half to when I was about 19 and a half. I was a whole year and a half of just working, and out of nowhere, I started getting harassed by local police when I started working for this job in Richmond called Triple E. Coming home from work from Triple E, I was getting harassed by state police. Um, and, just to give you like, like, the police in my town, what they're capable of, it's stories of me hearing, of them covering up murders, and I don't have no proof to that. There's stories of them, you know, um, having roadblocks and stopping drug dealers at the checkpoint, which they didn't set the checkpoint for them. It just so happened that he was coming back from wherever he got his drugs from, and he was at a checkpoint, and they found the drugs. And, you know, and some of his family and friends was like, they took the drugs, but when they did the police report and documents and stuff, a whole pound of the drugs went missing. And I could tell you stories about when I was a dishwasher and how one of the guys there, you know, said, he was at a party and a police officer coming in with a bag of weed. He wasn't in uniform, but he coming in with a bag of weed, throw the weed on the table, and they all smoking and drinking. So, you know, I hate to do this to my community, but and say these things to my community, and I've been putting it off for a while, but the reality is the disrespect I'm getting, this is taking its toll on my family, it's taking its toll on me, and it needs to stop, and you know, um, it needs to stop. And like for another example, um, before medicine, it was this police hangout across from a grocery store called TriStar. Back then, the police hangout, there was a store across from the grocery store, convenience store, and it was called Texaco. It was a gas station.
Okay.
And I'm working this job in Richmond, and I didn't go there often, but I go there and use my debit card to pay for gas, pump my gas, get home. So when I put in my yard, my mom come outside worried, like, did you just steal gas? I'm like, no, I used my debit card, I paid for it. And just so happened, the lady that was working at the convenience store that day which is a neighbor of mine. She stayed probably 200, 250 feet from my house in a cul-de-sac. And she didn't really speak to us. They didn't really speak to anyone.
You didn't know him that well.
I didn't know him that well. So, she called her sister, which dates my first cousin through marriage, and tell him that I stole gas, and if I didn't come back there and pay for it, she was going to call the police. And that was 100% lie. And I find it a coincidence that it's a police hangout where that happened at. And to really make it prove what I'm saying, ever since the war in Iraq, gas prices was high, even back in 2005, 2006. So gas stations stopped allowing you to, pump before you pay. You had to prepay. You had to pay before you pumped. And that's what I did. I used my debit card. I didn't get to the pump and she pressed the button, allowed me to pump, and then I was supposed to come in and pay for it because nobody in my town did that. That was a practice that ended a long time ago, at least 2-3 years ago, from the rise in gas prices from the Iraq War.
Right.
So I paid for that gas, and her last name she was one of the leads. I ain't gonna say her first name, because at the end of the day, she made a mistake, and I don't think she's responsible for what I'm going through right now, but she had a role in the start of it to get me in a position I'm in. And I have a name. I had planned on saying her first name, but I'm not. But she lied on me, and if that was some kind of warning from the police and the pillars of my community in Main Street, and being the harassment at other times from the local police, why didn't it go to my family? I got an uncle, that, I ain't gonna say he knows them, but, he's someone you would want to, not someone meaning because he's my uncle, because he's my uncle, but because he's a male. When you look at police and things like that, you don't necessarily want to bother females with those problems, with street problems. So you want to go to a male figure, head of the household type thing. If you have an issue, because most people would describe street matters as man problems.
Okay.
Do you get that to what I'm trying to say?
Like, that makes sense to me. I'm not so familiar with street problems that, like, I know that about the culture independently, but it makes sense to me that would be true.
Like let's say, for example, if a mobster is gonna threaten someone and they try to extort someone, who do you think the mobster will go to pass his message along? The man of the house or the female, that wife of his?
I imagine it would be whoever they think is going to be most effective in hearing and passing along the message. So I could see situations where it could be either or, but I don't know anything about the mob, so.
Me neither, but I feel like,
because sometimes women can be afraid enough for their families that they'll really push
and
things.
if you don't want to say mobsters, let's say two parents of children at school. One kid is bullying another kid, and the male, if the male of the bully kid go to the house of the family to talk to them, he could talk to the parent. But if he want to make any type of threat that if you don't do something with your child, I feel like he would probably make that threat to the man of the house, because making an idle threat to a female, it's kind of like a whip move. And so that's why I say my uncle. My uncle was an electrician, so, he worked for people all throughout the community. He's not involved in to selling anything illicit. And so if they wanted to reach out to someone, that's who they should have reached out to. You know, my stepfather, he's not from Lancaster, you know, and some of the police officers, the black ones, my uncles grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my ex, her first cousin removed is a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of my uncles used to date his cousin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other police officer that's not related to my ex that's black, he stayed on the same road as my aunt. You know, so there was ways of preventing this. There was ways of preventing this to the point where if they was really trying to stop this like they say they was and really trying to warn me like they say they were, they would have reached out to one of my uncles. And personally, I feel like, you know, that if one of the black police officers wanted to reach out to my family, more than likely, because of the nature of it, they would have went to my uncle. Because one thing, like an old mob rule, mobsters used to say, you know, don't cheat on your wife. You ever heard that back in the day? I think it was like some mobsters like treat your wife right because, you know, your wife could be the reason you go down because she could turn on you,
right,
get you indicted. You know, even you look at the laws like how mobsters and criminals will murder their wife just so their wife couldn't testify against them. You know, women, for the most part, in crime are fragile, and this is just my opinion, are fragile when it comes to crime to a degree to where most people feel like a woman will break and tell and inform before a male will. And that's a sexist thing to say, but you know, because it don't always apply.
Right.
But that's the thinking of most males.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see them running to my mother telling her such and such because, especially if cops are doing wrongdoing, because they would be afraid that it might not pan out in their best interest. So they will run to an uncle, you know, who, or a father who would basically be a man, is what they would say. You know,
Mm-hmm.
men are supposed to be the protectors. And that's all I'm trying to say with my uncle.
Right.
That's all I'm trying to say with my uncle. You know, you will run to a protector. You know, and most women see men as protectors. Most men see themselves as protectors. So that's when you have an issue or a dilemma, you want to go to a protector versus someone that you may consider weaker
Mm-hmm.
than a male counterpart. You know,
right.
So
So you could understand them not reaching out to your mom, but
yeah.
Your uncle was right there, and you don't understand why they wouldn't.
I wouldn't say he was right there. I would say that, you know, he would have been the perfect person, you know, because he's a male. Maybe not my stepfather because he's not from that town. So he didn't go to school with some of the police officers, you know. So I could see them reaching out to an uncle who went to school with them.
Who they know.
Who they actually know, you know. And I feel like, you know, but back to the story, you know, they said I stole the gas. And I didn't because, you know, if, like I said, if the police was trying to warn me, they could, and just to end the debate of the back and forth we're having, they should have went to my mother. They should have went to my uncle. They should have went to any one of my family members to say, you know, such and such is going on, and these people are dangerous, and they're trying to get Terrell caught up in some drama, you know, and be prepared, you know, but You know, my mother, I pulled up in the driveway, my mother come outside and says, did you just steal gas? I was like, no, I used my debit card. She was like, well, they just said you stole some gas. You go in the house, don't come out the house. I'm gonna go pay for the gas. And I was like, but I paid for it. She was like, I'm gonna go pay for the gas. You know, I'm gonna figure what's going on.
Right. I'll go figure it out.
She went and paid for the gas, and the police never showed up. I guess she never called the police. But this lady, she wasn't a friendly person. She didn't know me like that. Even though a family member of mine was dating her sister, she didn't know me like that. I didn't go there that often to get gas. For her to, even if she could manually switch it, to be manually switching it to let me get the gas and then go inside and pay for it. We didn't have that relationship. Right. She didn't even speak to me when we passed in vehicles. So I know she ain't gonna be kindly enough to do something
to
for
give
me.
You gas, yeah, to let you pump gas
before. And that's something she won't do with anyone else. So, you know, but, you know, my bank, it never showed up on my bank statement that I paid for the gas. You know, and now let's talk about my bank. My bank, you know, I actually closed that bank account because I suspected someone has stole almost $1,000 from me out that bank account. You know, and it was, I don't know how much exactly, but what happened was I was working at UPS. I was working 2 jobs, making good money. And I had put 2 paychecks in the bank. And I only had a few things that was drawn out automatically. That was my car radio and one other bill, I believe. And, you know, I didn't do that many debit transactions. Out of nowhere, I go to my bank and they're like, and see my balance. I'm like, what is going on here? You know, and that's why all this stuff is just starting off, you know, and I'm like, what is going on here? Where did my money go? And I even said it to the teller, you know, from the window. I was like, I think somebody stole some of my money. And I don't think it was a thing where the whole bank was in on it, stealing money from their customers or clients. I think it might have been a lone wolf that did it.
Somebody who was
just embezzling money personally. You know, I have no reason to think that the bank was out to get me, but it was during the time all this stuff was going on. But to say that it's not only my head, my stepfather had a bank account there years prior, and I didn't know the reason why he closed his and went to another bank, because he suspected someone of theirs stealing his money too. And I wasn't aware of that till I got home, and it was like, I think someone stole money out of my bank account. He like, yeah, I thought that too. That's why I switched banks. You know, so that's when I closed my bank account. You know, and you know, but you know, and I know that kind of contradicts my story of saying, you know, that the bank wasn't in on it. But as far as the transaction with the gas, I think the bank was in on that. But you know, I don't even know why I even brought up, but that someone stole my money. But you know, because it really, one don't have anything to do with the other, I suspect. You know, but it's crazy, like, you know, and you know, and like a lot of people played a role into getting me in this situation, you know, people I know, you know, and people I don't know. Like when, like the Main Street Connect, how much time we have?
No, we got 20 minutes, a little more than 20 minutes.
Okay. Like
we got till 11:15. So
yeah. Like the Main Street connection, you know, when I played baseball, that's who was the coaches of all the teams. A lot of the businesses on Main Street, some of them was actually sponsors that they owned the team. So I played baseball for a coach. His name was Burke. That's his last name. His last name was Burke. And I stopped playing baseball at like 11 to about 12 years old, maybe. I played Little League. So, um, that's my only ties to the pillars of community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's through baseball,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like a kid, like 11, 12 years old at the time, and you're not consciously aware of any type of crime at that age. You're not suspecting people to be bad people, and and I personally, I never saw any. I was never treated bad by them, and so I had no reason to suspect anything of them, involved in any criminal activity. Like, when I was a kid, I heard stories of this dude, and I don't know if it was my coach specifically, but just the pillars of the community on Main Street. There was stories that this dude, black dude, moved a business on Main Street. He was dealing drugs. They was all working with him dealing drugs. And the black guy got arrested by the feds and told on some of the people on Main Street. I don't know who specifically, but he told on them. And they said they tried to kill him in jail. That was a rumor that started because somebody had tried to kill him in jail once. He went to jail, the black guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then I think there was even an article, that says that kind of that kind of was like, oh, we're hearing the rumors, no one, and I don't know where that came from. That could have just been a rumor that there was an article in the newspaper, because I don't know why the newspaper would put an article, saying that the pillars of the community wasn't involved in anything illicit, something like that. You would think most people would just want it to go away, but that was a rumor that they had put an article in the newspaper. And mind you, I'm like anywhere from 11 or 12, 13, I wasn't smoking cigarettes, I wasn't drinking alcohol, I wasn't doing drugs. So I wasn't really, didn't care what that was about. But that was a thing that happened as a kid in my town. And being in a small town, something like that is big, because don't much go on there like that. But, like a friend of mine told me, I think I was telling you before, when I was first put on this medicine, that Main Street has ties to Homeland Security, and and I think that's kind of how I got in the situation I'm in, because the reality is, like these guys that got me on this medicine, where did they get their information from? It's stuff that they put in songs before I was even on this medicine, about things about me from high school. I don't know where they obtained this information. There's things that they done said about some of my friends. It's even stuff about my ex-girlfriend that they done put in music before medicine. And I'm like, where are they getting this information from? And T.I., to be more specific, I'm like, where's they getting all this knowledge about me, my ex-girlfriend, and my circle of friends, And I'm like, either they got it from the source, which was the pillars of the community, people from my town, or the government was spying on not just me illegally, because I wasn't committing any crimes at that time, but my ex-girlfriend. And she wasn't involved in anything I was doing when I was selling pot. Nothing, and and it's stuff that they know about her. How did they get this information? Like, because it's some of the stuff like about me is embarrassing, and I would never tell nobody this. So who told people that? I don't know if my girlfriend told somebody, but I don't know how rappers in Atlanta and New York found out. And I don't know, so it's kind of like, how did they know all this stuff about me, unless they was monitoring, people closely and not just monitoring me, and, like, to go back to the rappers, for example, Lloyd Banks, he was with 50 Cent and G-Unit. He came out with a song called Hands Up. And this was when I was first put on the medicine, because when I came out of the hospital, my family was like, everything's going to be okay. Just, take it easy, meaning like stop worrying. Because that's what I was doing. And this was on the way home from Eastern State. And they said that. And I get home thinking, because I was given due dates and all kinds of stuff about when I'll be off this medicine. And it was kind of like, take it, don't worry, everything is okay. And I come home within a week of being home, I would say, they come out with the song called Hands Up, talking about everything ain't as sweet as it looks. And they go on to say, what was the lyric that Lloyd Banks said? I'm going to say the lyric this time because I think it's important. He was saying, they want your old man's, meaning your father in the casket, lights off and your body stiff by the same people you used to party with. And for the longest, I thought they was talking about my circle of friends, because before the medicine, my circle of friends started behaving weirdly, talking about me, all kind of stuff that they was doing that was wrong in me, and that's why they came back out in like early 2000, well not early, but 2006, between 2008, talking about the Gen of 6. That's what they use that as a reference point to what my friends was doing to me. But I always thought that they was talking about my friends when they said the same dudes you used to party with. But as I understood the codes a little better, and I still don't understand everything, but as I understood the codes a little better, the ball diamond where I played baseball had a rec center where everyone used to throw parties. So when they said party with, they wasn't referring to my group of friends. They was referring to the people on Main Street that I played baseball with, wanting to harm my father. And, so that's what I think, and
that's your interpretation of all of this.
And see, that's the thing with this situation, like, the reference points, the communications, how they try to communicate with me, that, a lot of times these things cause more problems than they help, and like some of the reference points, like, let me see, like how I was saying, how things are designed around this situation. Like, you got a rap group called Slaughterhouse, and like how I was telling you last week, like they threatened my family and the Young Jeezy, the good with the bad, the Slaughterhouse. That's because people threaten to slaughter everybody, my family. Then it's a group, it's a singer called The Weeknd. Well, where his name derived from, I used to always joke with my mom, and we got a good relationship, and I used to say, you only love me, because she used to be off on Saturday and Sunday, and that's when we would talk the most. And I was like, yeah, you only love me on the weekend, making that joke. And I know she always loved me, and my mom always put us over herself. And then a singer musician come out with the name The Weeknd. Then you got Lady Gaga. Well, the lady my mama used to private set when, and she passed away now, but she used to private set, my mom did. And her client name was Gaga. And that's where Lady Gaga name comes from, because the Lady Gaga, her mother, her daughter had my mother, and her daughter, she was a little older than me, probably about a couple years older than me. I'm 37, so she probably about 42. I saw her one day, and I was always attracted to her. I thought she was real pretty. And she probably never thought I thought she was attractive. Or not that she didn't think she was attractive, but she never thought I was attracted to her.
Right.
And I was out, and I ran into her, And I was like, man, she fine. And she kind of was surprised that I thought that about her. And she gave me a look. It wasn't like a negative look, but it was like shock. Oh, I didn't know you felt that way. Not that she wanted to date me or anything. But it was more
She
like
was just
shock,
surprised.
you know. And Lady Gaga come out with a song talking about see the way they looking at me, because she gave me a surprise look, you know. So that was Lady. I forgot the name of Lady Gaga's song. It's one of her first songs, talking about God. And it's another artist that did a song to the same beat named Wale, which is very rare for two chart type of songs to have the same beat. So I think it's something more to that, but I don't know.
You're just like seeing all these connections and trying to
So,
figure out if they're real connections or they're just
so
coincidental,
like, so like
resonances.
So like you see, like there's a lot of names, and whether it's music albums, names of artists that goes with this situation, you know. And like I was saying, you know, the reality is we all know what's going on here, but get in a courtroom, you can't prove any of it beyond reasonable doubt. And we all know it's true, but we can't prove it. And like Judge Mathis said one day, he was like, everybody know OJ did it. We just couldn't prove it. That came from Judge Mathis. And that's the same thing with here. But, you know, this is by design, though. Like, people know what's going on here, but you can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt because people were smart enough to structure it that way, which kind of goes back to what I was saying with Black people, like how we always, you know, allow people to take over our communities, you know. And me being in this situation is not a coincidence that they chose someone Black, knowing how Black people handle situations, how we accept negative things that happen to us, and not quick to want to sue someone, want to get someone arrested, you know. And that's how people look at us, you know. And just like that situation I was just explaining, you know, it's kind of like, you know, if you know how something is going to play out, you can plan for that. So when they say they're going to get somebody this medicine under these circumstances, they plan for it to be a Black guy because that's the only way these circumstances will only work happening to a Black guy. You know, proving it beyond a reasonable doubt. They structured it and planned it that way because you can't prove nothing. That's the way they can get away with what they want. You know, and if the government wanted to, they could probably try conspiracy, but ain't nobody out here trying to arrest nobody for what's going on. They only trying to pin all of it on me when I'm really the innocent one of everything, of everyone, you know. And me and my family, like my family's being extorted, I'm being held hostage, and we really the only victims. And everybody's blaming me, you know, and really I got nothing to do with any of it, you know. But how it was architected, you know, it's kind of like we know how to get away with stuff. And like there's this book about the Carlisle Group, I think it's called the Iron Triangle. And I think it was a comment I saw that says, you know, how the Carlisle Group, which is associated with George Bush and the Saudis and all them, and they talk about how, you know, the Carlisle Group, they go out here and do illegal things, and then they turn around and make it legal. And I don't feel like that's fair. I don't feel like I should be bound to this medicine because the reality is I didn't do nothing and I was pretty much framed. And now they're trying to act like, you know, I'm a criminal or a terrorist when I really ain't got nothing to do with any of this. You know, and you know, I'm trying to see if I covered everything. And then this is where I finish it, you know. But yeah, like if they wanted to, they could probably hit it with conspiracy, you know. But reasonable doubt, they ain't doing that, because even though everybody know what it is, long as everybody stick to their guns and don't say, well, yeah, that is true, then it's a case that is going to get thrown out.
Right.
It's a case of mistrial, but if the government
if it's just like, oh, I see this and I see this and they seem to be connected, but unless there's proof that there's connected.
And that's how it's architected, how it's designed, and just another thing, and that's where I ended. And, like the doctor that gave me this medicine, he was my childhood doctor, and there's stuff that I'm not saying, and I would love to talk about it. It's not that I'm trying to withhold it, and this is kind of what the incident that led to me getting on the medicine. But I will say this, my doctor said I saw too much and to come to his office. And then he was like, I think you depressed. You and your ex broke up a while back. You wrecked your car, you lost your job. Why don't you try this medicine for depression? And he gave me a box of Cymbalta, a sample pack of Cymbalta, which probably had like maybe, 10 packets in it. And that's how I got on this medicine, and honestly, I think that there's a possibility that my doctor, childhood doctor, and which I vouched for, he wouldn't do anything to hurt me. I know that, but he did give me the medicine. So I would be a character witness towards him because he's not involved in any illicit stuff. He don't got nothing to gain by me being in this situation, so back to what I was saying, he gave me a box, and I honestly think that him nor my family knew those tablets of what was supposed to be depression medicine was actually mind reading medicine, because you see all that's going on here.
So you don't think it was really Cymbalta?
It wasn't Cymbalta. It's the medicine I'm on now, the mind reading. And I don't think, I have no proof of this, but I don't think him nor my family knew that the medicine that I was given was mind reading medicine till I was actually on the medicine. And then that's when everybody got the earpieces. Because, for example, if they came to Dr. Ting and said, yeah, Terrell saw too much, we trying to figure out what's in his head. We want to give you some mind reading medicine. And there's roughly 10,000 people in my town. And we're going to give the whole town or 100, possibly 2,000 people earpieces. And we're going to let them listen to all Terrell's deepest and inner thoughts so we can figure out if he knew something that we thought he knew. If they would have went to my doctor, my childhood doctor with that, he wouldn't have agreed to that. No one would.
Right.
Especially if you've been my doctor ever since I was like 5 or 6 years old.
Right.
He wouldn't have agreed to that. So the likely reality is they probably told him, they went to him and said, give him this medicine, this depression medicine, because he's not a psychiatric doctor, so he's not going to have, more than likely, he's not going to have a supply of psychiatric medicine like depression medicine.
Right.
So they gave him, and this is what I suspect, so it's likely that they gave him this medicine that's mind reading medicine and allow him, my family, and myself to think it was real depression medicine. And once they got me on the medicine, then that's when they came to everybody with the earpieces. I didn't even know I was on the medicine until about 3 weeks or more. I don't even know when they came to house and gave out the earpieces. Because I've never seen the earpiece.
I was going to say, have you seen people wearing earpieces?
I've never looked in nobody's ear like that.
Okay.
Because of respect. And that goes to show like the character of me, or the coward of me, because I know people that if people were responding to their thoughts in a negative way, they would have snatched those earpieces out their ear. And I know people got it, but I'm not going to do that, and I never do that.
And people have them because?
How people respond to my thoughts, but like I was saying, I don't think that they told Dr. Taylor, hey, We want to see what's in Terrell's head. We're going to give you some mind reading medicine to give to him, and we're going to have 1,000 or 10,000 people listening to his thoughts. And he'll be like, no, I'm not doing it. And that's kind of common sense. It's speculation on my behalf, but it's common sense that they tricked my doctor and my family into doing this. And this was the government. And how I remember, one of the first things I remember, or the first times I remember being on this medicine, I went to church, and it was this white lady there, and you could tell she was government. And she sat up there with the church choir, and the preacher said some things which kind of triggered thoughts with me.
What made you think of that?
Some stuff was going on, but you could tell. I finished it up. But you could tell she was government, and she sat there like, possibly, I don't know, CIA, Homeland, but like her disposition was like cold and calculated.
Just really kind of like distant and formal,
and it stuck out. It stuck out a lot.
Wow.
But